Good evening to all the participants who joined us for this session. I would like to welcome Mr. Anil Johri sir, who is a distinguished alumnus of IIT Kanpur and has been instrumental in bringing us all together here for this session. And I would want to also introduce Professor Ashwani Thakur sir, who also is the professor in charge of bioinnovations at IIT Kanpur. And I would want to thank him for taking out time for chairing this session. So thank you very much. And over to you to introduce our esteemed speakers for the day. Thank you.
Thank you, Udain. I hope I am audible.
Yes.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Startup Incubation and Innovation Centers, IIT Kanpur's month-long webinar series, which is focused on medical devices, regulations, and certification in India. IIT Kanpur and BIS work very closely in standard development activities in the country, especially as IIC is putting an effort in making next generation medical device entrepreneurs, disruptive technologies, and thus imparting towards molding the MedTech industries of tomorrow. Thus, a deep understanding of the regulatory and quality conformance pathway is very crucial. And in this direction, BIS and NABL bridge the gap between startups, industry, and the society. Today, to educate us in this direction, we have two eminent speakers from BIS and NABL. The first speaker of today's webinar is Mr. Sumit Kumar. Sumit Kumar is a scientist, Medical Equipment and Hospital Planning Department, Bureau of Indian Standards. Sumit did his MTech in Mechanical Engineering from IIT Dhanbad. He has more than 15 years of experience in various departments of the Bureau. He is part of the Medical Equipment and Hospital Planning Department of BIS since January 2019. He has been associated with national and international standardization activities of the sectional committees concerned with obstetric and gynecological instruments, anesthetic, resuscitation and allied equipments, hospital equipment and surgical disposal, dentistry, medical biotechnology, and nanotechnology. He is also currently pursuing doctorate in energy science and engineering from IIT Delhi. The second speaker is Ms. Mallika Gope, who is the director at National Accreditation Board for Testing and Calibration Laboratories, which is known as NABL. She did her bachelor's in electronics and communication engineering from NIT Raipur. She has a vast experience of 18 years in safety and environmental testing and electrotechnical calibration. She has also more than 10 years of experience in the accreditation of testing, calibration of medical laboratories, proficiency testing providers, and reference material producers. So with this short introduction, I again welcome all of you and two of our eminent speakers in today's webinar. I hope that you will gain a lot of practical experience and learn the roadmap for medical devices regulation and certification. So with these words, I thank you very much, and over to you, Udain.
Thank you so much, sir, for the introduction of the speakers. I would request the participants to kindly put in their questions in the chat box, and at the end of the session, we'll have a Q&A interactive discussion on various things that has been discussed, and thereafter also we will be taking the questions which the participants have also mentioned during their filling up of their various forms for attending the session. So over to the speakers to start off with their session. Mr. Sumit Kumar, sir.
Thank you, sir. Please enable the screen sharing so I can share my presentation.
Yeah, Ragni, I'll just request if you can
Yes, sir.
enable.
You can go ahead, sir. I have done that.
I hope my screen is visible.
Yes, sir, it is.
Yes.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank IIT Kanpur for giving me this opportunity to give presentation. I would also like to thank Mr. Anil Jori sir. He has been a guiding force and organizing and guiding us through all these seminars. Now I will, without taking much of time, I will start off with my presentation. So my topic is I will be covering the standardization and conformity assessment activities of BIS, and my focus will be on particularly on the medical devices. To begin with, just a brief introduction about BIS. BIS, erstwhile the Indian Standards Institution, commonly known as ISI, it came into being on January 1947. And in the initial years, Indian Standard Institution concentrated on the standardization activities. Then in year 1955, the product certification activity were also initiated. And the idea was to provide advantage of standardization to the consumers and to give a third party assurance for the benefit of the consumers. To support the conformity assessment schemes, in 1963, BIS also established its laboratory. And in 1986, the government, with an act of parliament, BIS Act 1986, the BIS came into being and took over the functions and assets of Indian Standards Institution. Through this change, through this act, the government envisaged that to build a quality culture in country and also to enhance the participation of consumers in the various activities of the Bureau. Now through Act of 2016, BIS has now been notified as the National Standards Body of India, along with some many other changes. As far as the BIS activities are concerned, BIS has a multifarious roles in the quality assurance and standardization field. One of the prime most function is the standard formulation activity. BIS has published more than 20,000 Indian standards as on date. And to support this, BIS also maintains liaison with the International Standardization Body. BIS is the founding member of the two most important international standardization organization, ISO as well as IEC. Then BIS also operates the product certification schemes, which we will be covering later today in detail. It also has compulsory registration scheme, which is for IT products. BIS also operates foreign manufacturer certification schemes for manufacturers who are importing products into the country. Then we have hallmarking activities for precious metals like gold and silver. Then BIS also has laboratory services. BIS has its own laboratory, as well as BIS also recognizes the other outside laboratories. And laboratory activity as till now is focused mainly to support our product certification activities. Then BIS also has consumer. BIS does a lot of activities for consumer awareness, and BIS has a training institute which caters to both national and international participants. Now coming on to the standardization aspect of the medical devices, we have a medical equipment and hospital planning department. BIS has standardization activities in various fields. BIS has 15 division councils. which caters to different areas like civil engineering, mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, and so on and so forth. Among all these 15 division council relating to medical equipment and devices, we have medical equipment and hospital planning division council. This division council has 20 sectional committees. This MHD department has published more than 1400 Indian standards relating to medical devices and equipments, and of which more than 480 standards are harmonized with international standards. And we are fortunate that to have more than 650 experts who are associated with us, and they help us out in this national building activity of this standard formulation. Now, among these 20 sectional committees, I have listed some of the broad areas in which we carry out the standardization work. Some of these committees related to hospital equipment, assistive devices, surgical equipment, hospital equipment, surgical disposable products, electromedical diagnostic imaging and radiotherapy, anesthetic and respiratory equipment, contraceptives, veterinary equipments, IBT devices, hospital planning, biomedical waste management, health informatics, medical biotechnology and nanotechnology, anatomy and forensic equipment, and dental equipment. So these are a few of the areas in which our MHD department is engaged in standard development. Now, in our sectional committee, we draw the members from various interests, including manufacturers, consumers, government departments, regulators, testing labs, consultants, and academia. There are few basic principles on which our sectional committees operate. One of the foremost is the consensus principle, that our approach is not to force down a standard on anybody. We want to develop a standard with the inputs from all, from having a consensus of all. Then another principle is to have a balanced committee structure. That committee must represent all the interest. It should not have it should not be lacking in some interest. It should have expertise from all areas, from consumers, from manufacturers, from technologists, and from all people who are all stakeholders who are interested in the work of the committee. Then we also carry out periodic review. Periodic review is both for the sectional committee and for the standards which are published by the sectional committee, so that both the sectional committee composition also represents the current situation, and also our Indian standards cater to the matches the pace with the development in the technology. We also try to give due representation to consumer organizations and technological institution in our committee. So this is just a brief process of standard formulation. Any organization, any individual can make a proposal for development of standards. The sectional committee on its own can also choose item on which, choose the area in which it needs to take up for standardization. Once a committee receives a new work item proposals, then a working draft, which is in a shape of, we try to give it in a shape of an Indian standard. Once that working draft has been made, then subsequently it is taken up for discussion in a sectional committee, and preliminary draft is circulated, which is for discussion within among the panel or the committee members. Once the preliminary draft has been finalized by the sectional committee, it goes for wide circulation. By wide circulation, we mean we need to build a national consensus. We host it on our website and send the copies to the different interested stakeholders requesting for their comments. After receiving the comments and opinion of all related stakeholders and keeping the due consideration into the due consideration to all those comments, draft is finalized, And once a draft has been finalized and approved by the concerned sectional committee, it gets published as Indian standard and is notified in a Gazette of India. Now, harmonization has become an important aspect in today's scenario because uh, standards are also used for international trades, and so we are focusing on adoption of ISO and IC standards pace of technology with the world. We have a proactive approach. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Oh, okay.
Yes, sir. Sometimes maybe due to the video, sometimes it does hang a little bit. You can turn off your video if you
Okay.
feel that it's hanging.
Okay, now is it okay?
Yeah, either way is fine. So you can please
Okay, thank
continue.
you. Thank you. So we are now focusing on adoption of ISO and IC or international standards, and we have a very proactive approach in this regard. And not only we are adopting their standards, but we are also contributing to the development of international standards. Our experts and our members, they participate in ISO and IC meetings. We give our inputs through ballots also, and whenever we receive a document from ISO, we also submit our, we put forward our national viewpoint before ISO and IC. So, what are the benefits of this harmonization? Number one, it avoids the cost of complying with multiple standards. If our Indian manufacturer want to export to some other country, and if the product is aligned with the international standard, then the manufacturer does not face the problem in uh, regarding the acceptance of their product in the international market. Then it avoids redundant testing. Product which is harmonized to international standards, if it is tested in one country, it can be accepted in another country. There can be a uniformity of test reports, and it reduces complexity, and it also ensures the availability of safe and sound quality products for consumers across the globe. So this is the a list of our standards published by different sectional committees. We have been keeping pace with the latest technologies. We are evolving and developing new sectional committees as and when the need for standards in particular sector comes up. For example, anatomy and forensic science, medical biotechnology, these all sectional committees, they have been recent additions uh, to the list of sectional committees. And because need was felt that we need to have sectional committees, we need to have Indian standards on this field. Similarly, for all general and all applicable technology field in field of medical science, we we have the sectional committees. So this is just an overview of association of different experts in our various subcommittees and division councils. Now, coming on to the questions as to what is the relevance of Indian standards as far as medical devices are concerned or medical device regulation is concerned. As we are all aware that medical devices are uh, are regulated or are is governed by Medical Device Rules 2017. Now, in the clause 7 of this medical device rules, it lays down the hierarchy of standard which has to be followed by a medical device. It states that wherever Indian standard has been established, then medical device shall conform to the standard laid by the BIS. In case no standard is published on the product by BIS, then the second level of hierarchy goes to ISO or IC standards. Now, I think by a latest amendment, ASTM standards have also been included. And in case neither the Indian standard, neither the international standards are existing, then the manufacturer's own standard can also be utilized. So this gives the relevance to Indian standard or importance to the Indian standard, and importance of Indian standard in the regulation of the medical devices. Now coming on to some of the major ongoing projects, our medical equipment and hospital planning department has during the past 2-3 years, we have taken up on a very proactive approach toward development of standards. We have developed more than 300 standards in last 3 years itself, and tasked by the various government agencies and organizations to develop standards on some specific area, and we have lived to their expectations. I have listed few of these ongoing projects. One of the project is relating to commonly procured medical devices by HLL Technologies Limited, shortly known as ITES. We have so far developed more than 280 standards for commonly procured medical devices, and 81 standards are under various stages of development, and 56 standards are pending as on date. So out of 419 standards requested to be developed by Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, we have so far developed more than 282 standards. Then coming on to priority assistive devices, we were tasked by the NITI Aayog to develop standards on assistive devices, which are covered under the Assistance to Disabled Persons scheme of Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. And currently we are in process of developing standards on club foot braces, folding canes, standing frames, spinal orthosis, ankle foot orthosis, and pressure relief cushions. And number of standards are already existing on assistive devices. We have a dedicated committee relating to assistive devices, which has developed a number of standards on wheelchairs, crutches, walkers, and orthotic devices and mobility aids. Another important project is relating to cold chain equipment, which has come of more major significance in today's scenario due to pandemic and requirement for vaccinations. We have developed standards on deep freezers, vaccine carriers, cold boxes, ice-lined refrigerators, and water packs. And this project was started mainly for pulse polio immunization program, and we have developed many standards for the same. Another important area and new area in which BIS has taken up for standardization is biomedical waste management. We are developing standards both relating to products and for processes for segregation, collection, and treatment and disposal of waste. And nowadays, cyber security of network connected medical devices is of extreme importance, because all of the data of the patients are stored in some electronic device by the hospitals. So we have a dedicated committee which is working on development of standards on cyber security of medical devices. Then telemedicine and telehealth related standards also we are in process of developing. Relating to in vitro diagnostic devices, I'm happy to say that India is the only country which has standards published relating to IBT devices. No other country or even ISO and IC have so far not come up with the standardization of these IBT devices. Then on high risk medical devices also we have number of standards, and still we are also developing more standards relating to rotablation machines, sternum source system, neuro navigation system, ICP monitors, and so on and so forth. On surgical instruments, we are working on surgical staplers, laparoscopic surgery equipment, and these are general use items which are used widely in general surgeries, and safety and biocompatibility requirements are very much essential for these products. Then pertaining to thoracic and cardiovascular surgery equipment, we are working on quality management of fluids for hemodialysis and cardiac valve repair devices. Relating to dentistry, we have number of standards in process relating to hand pieces, motors, membrane materials for guided tissue regeneration, contents of a technical file, dentistry, endodontic instruments, and so on and so forth. We are developing standards. On anatomy and forensic science, we have very just few last year itself we have taken up for standardization in this field, and we are working on development of standards relating to minimizing the risk of human DNA contamination in products, and digital physiograph, polygraph, and isolated organ bath. Anesthetic, resuscitation, and allied equipment is also one of important committees which has great significance during the pandemic, and we have developed during the pandemic time we have developed number of standards on ventilators, and presently we are in final stage of developing standard on oxygen concentrator. Apart from that, the committee is also working on number of standards including pneumatic tourniquet, sleep apnea breathing therapy equipment, and tracheal intubation laryngoscopes. Similarly, on orthopedics, also we are having a few work items, and obstetric and gynecological instruments is also an important committee, and it has developed number of important standards, and not only in India but internationally. This committee has contributed so much for standardization at international level, and number of Indian standards have been developed. A number of international standards have been developed by experts from our committee in ISO. Presently, this committee is working on fallopian rings, IUCD insufflators, vaginal rings, balloon ablation, and guidance on sample handling for determination of bursting volume and pressure for male condoms. Now, BIS is also involved with the with the startups. It is coordination with startup is important since we want to understand their views and their problems relating to standardization or gap areas, and to identify the gap areas where we need to develop standards. And for strengthening the harmonization process, we hold regular meetings with the representatives of MedTechs and startups. So far, we have had 5 meetings, and the 6th meeting is being planned in the next month, during the August. These are the few of the subjects which have been taken up based on the meetings held up with the startups, and I'm pleased to say that we have developed many of the standards which were required by the startups, and in a very timely manner we have been able to come up with standards. We have already published standards on otoscopes, on electronic health records, on resuscitator, on nanoparticle based hospital disinfectant, and laser equipment used for medical purposes. And we are working on few of the standards like Bluetooth operated ECG and EEG machine, disposable ECG electrodes, external defibrillator, automated type, standing wheelchair, and mobile peritoneal dialysis device. Now, these are the few of the new initiatives at organizational level which BIS has taken in recent past. One is we have gone to paperless office, and there are a number of portals through which all stakeholders can interact with the BIS, and also these portals are used for the internal working of BIS also. Then we are having increased interaction with the standard developing organizations on theme of one nation and one standard. We have organized number of training programs for committee members to give more focused attention on national and international standardization practices. We have an R&D scheme for funding of new projects which lead to development or revision of Indian standards. We have taken up with the different government ministries and industry associations for creation of standardization cells. Such cells are expected to be a single contact point between BIS and the respective ministry or industry association. We are organizing series of seminars and webinars for dissemination of information, and now Indian standards can be downloaded free of cost. I just want to bring to the attention this important Indian standard with respect to quality management system. This is an amalgamation of 3 ISO standards: ISO 13485, which is relating to quality management system for medical devices, then ISO 16142 part 1 and 16142 part 2, which are relating to principles and which are relating to safety and performance of medical devices. So through merger of these 3 international standards into a single Indian standard, we expect that it will give ease to the users and the manufacturers to comply with the national regulations, and instead of complying with 3 different international standards, compliance can be made to one single Indian standard. Now coming on to our international harmonization activity, international standardization activities, we are participating members in 15 technical committees and 10 sectional subcommittees of International Organization for Standardization, shortly known as ISO, and we are a participating member in IEC TC 62. BIS or our India holds convenership of following 3 working groups at ISO, 2 relating to ISO TC 157, relating to synthetic male condoms and guidance on the use of condom standards. We also hold convenership of ISO TC 173 on assistive products. Apart from them, from these committees where we had convenership, we are also have made significant contributions in number of ISO technical committees, including that on sterilization of healthcare products, health informatics, assistive devices, and non-systematic contraceptives. Now I am over with my presentation relating to standardization. Now I will go ahead with the presentation relating to conformity assessment schemes of BIS.
Sir, we'll start the question and answer for your session at around 4:40, if that is okay with you.
4:40, okay, sir.
Okay.
Just I will briefly go through in 5 minutes, sir.
Sure. Not an issue.
So in conformity assessment, this is basically quality infrastructure ecosystem. First, we require a standard against which that conformity assessment is to be done. Then the conformity assessment scheme or accreditation and metrology. Then the technical regulations and awareness and counseling. These all forms a pillar of such ecosystem. These are just, I have listed the few of the provisions in the BIS Act. Basically, BIS Act provides number of conformity assessment schemes, and broadly they can be categorized into license to use standard mark and a certificate of conformity. And government can notify any good article, process or system for compulsory certification, although our product certification is generally voluntary in nature, but government through a quality control order can direct that any product be brought under mandatory certification, so that its manufacture, import, distribution, selling, storing, etc. is prohibited without BIS license. These are just a few of the conformity assessment schemes model. Scheme 1 is relating to commonly known as ISI mark, in which we certify the product. Then scheme 2 is registration scheme for IT and electronic products. Scheme 3 is covers management systems. Similarly, for various good articles or services, we have number of conformity assessment schemes, or this is grant of certification of conformity. Our conformity schemes can be broken into three major streams: product certification, management system certification, and hallmarking of precious metals. Our product certification scheme is voluntary, mainly voluntary in nature, and as on date, more than 1,000 Indian standards are covered under certification, and more than 370 standards are covered under the compulsory certifications. In product certification, we have two different schemes, option 1 and option 2. Option 2 is the simplified procedure and option 1 is the normal procedure. In option 1, once a application is made for license, then a visit is made to the factory or premises. Sample is drawn, and once the sample passes, then the certificate of conformity or license is granted. In option 2, after application, with application, manufacturer can send the test report. Then an inspection of the premise is done, and license is granted based on the inspection and test report, and we do not wait for a result of the sample drawn during the inspection. So surveillance is based on factory surveillance, that is a visit by our officer to the factory premises. It is also done through market surveillance and also through consumer feedback and complaints. And license, if any problem with the license comes or some complaint is received or it fails the samples, then options of suspension, either suspension can be done or scope can be changed or license can be cancelled. As far as medical devices is concerned, the certification, compulsory certification is limited to only 3 Indian standards. Two are relating to clinical thermometers and one is relating to diagnostic X-ray. And as on date, more than 40 standards are covered under voluntary certification for medical devices, and more than 150 licenses are existing. These are few of the examples of the products which are covered under the compulsory certification scheme of BIS. These are few of the products which have been brought under compulsory license by Government of India in the recent past. It includes air conditioner, domestic coolers, toys, and few of the chemicals. This product registration scheme, it is mainly related to IT and electronic products and solar photovoltaic devices and switch gears and control gear products. In this, it is only based on the self-declaration by the manufacturer. In management system, BI is operating number of management system certification schemes ranging from quality management, environment management, HACCP, OHSMS, food safety management system, service delivery, energy management, medical devices management, social accountability, information security, and anti-bribery management systems. BIS is also into hallmark metals. Presently, only gold and silver artifacts and jewelry are covered under hallmarking schemes. And hallmarking is based on the we have assaying and hallmarking centers for testing of jewelry and issue and marking of hallmark. We also have 8 of BIS labs which support our product certification scheme, and more than 260 labs have been outside lab have also been recognized by BIS. This is just a chart to depict the growing popularity of BIS certification schemes. Thank you.
So, thank you very much, Mr. Sunil, for the wonderful presentation on BIS. I'll just, in the chat, just now share with you the questions with you and all the panelists and attendees as well. If they would be interested to also see the questions. The 3 questions which have come to us. One, which is the very common question we get from innovators across the board. At what stage do we have to plan to apply for the compliance? That's question number 1. Question number 2 is more specific. Which testing standards are applicable for porous coatings in orthopedic implants? And the third question is, what factors are needed to be considered while selecting control sensing elements for a medical grade device? And this is open to both the speakers, Mallika madam, and also of course Mr. Jory sir, who's been very kind to answer a lot of the questions while you were speaking. So if we can start with the first question very briefly. Of course, it's a very broad question, but perhaps keeping that, if you could answer that. Thank you.
First question was relating to when should we start with the
apply for the compliance. You can see it in the chat. It is there. I've put it in the chat. The 3 questions, broad, important questions. At what stage do we have to plan to apply for compliance? Is the question. And this is a very frequently asked question from innovators.
Let me try and answer that, Sumit.
Yes,
when you say compliance, one should be clear what are we meaning by compliance. As far as the law of the land is concerned, compliance means complying with MDR. So legal compliance is complying with the regulation of the country, which is today Medical Devices Rules 2017. As far as that regulation is concerned, please remember that as on today, there are about 37 categories of medical devices which are notified and regulated. Rest of them are being brought into regulation in a phased manner. First phase starts from August of this year and it will go on for 1 year for class A and B devices. And the second phase for C and D, which will go on for another 1 year. So you should comply with medical devices rules 2017 by August 2022 if you are producing class A and B medical devices, and you should comply with medical devices rules for class C and D by August 2023. Now, if you want to apply, you should apply if you are in commercial production anytime. The earlier you do, the better it is. It's going to be the law of the land. So my suggestion would be anybody who is into commercial production should apply as quickly as possible. Right now, it's what is called voluntary registration phase, but it's now few days left, about a month left, when CDSU said that you can have voluntary registration by submitting certain things, including, as far as quality was concerned, ISO 13485 certificate from either NABCB accredited or IF member body accredited certification body. So for next 1 month, you can voluntarily register by producing a ISO 13485 certificate. Beyond that, you should start preparing for compliance to medical devices rules if you are in class A and B in the next 1 year, and if you are in class C and D in next 2 years, compliance to medical devices rules. So that should be clear about the compliance part. That's it. Thanks. Sumit, you can go ahead further.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
I
thought there were more questions related. This was first question, but there were more.
Yes, sir. The second question is, which testing standards are applicable for porous coatings in orthopedic implants? It's a very specific question that has been asked.
For that, I think it will be covered under, because all the coatings are covered under our metallurgical divisions. So I will have to get back on to, they can send an email to us, and I will forward it to the concerned department, and we will get back to.
Fine, thank you. Third question is, what factors are needed to be considered while selecting control/sensing elements for a medical grade device?
All these factors, all these whatever sensors and is there, it is specified in the concerned standard. Every standard will have a different requirements. So either they can refer to the concerned Indian standard or ISO standard. As such, generally we cannot say that which requirement are there. Are no specific requirement for generic requirements, but most of these requirements are covered in IEC 60601 part 1 for electromedical equipments, and most of them are relating to alarm systems and everything. They can refer to IEC 60601 part 1 and number of standards published under it. And also we have many Indian standards. They can go through our program of work. We have corresponding Indian standards to IEC 60601 and many other standards relating to which may cover sensors.
Okay, and we've received a suggestion also, which I can share. In fact, maybe even you can comment on it, and Mr. Jory is also there. It says that NABL could offer an incubator-like testing calibration facility for multiple iterations during product development. It's a suggestion which has come from one of the participants. Any thoughts of any of the speakers on this, on the feasibility of this, and whether this is a worthy idea to take forward?
I think Mallika is there and she should answer for NABL.
Yes.
Actually the calibration laboratories and testing laboratories are open for any of the manufacturers who can approach them, and they can get the testing done multiple times and calibration also done multiple times during the development phase. So if a prototype is there, then they can very well test it in the laboratory, which is accredited for that particular standard against the requirements of which they are intending to make the product. And if that has requirement for calibration, so it can be calibrated after the final design is freezed. So that can be done. NABL doesn't have any laboratory of its own. We accredit laboratories, so you will have to approach the accredited testing and calibration laboratories for this purpose.
Thank you, ma'am. One or two final questions. One which is just now come. Do we have any testing standard for syringe pump and infusion pump, ECG electrodes? Mr. Sunil, sir.
Sumit, do we have, you are muted, do we have a product standard for these two? Then it would have some requirements.
We have standards on infusion pumps and syringe pumps. Standards are available. They can check on our website under MHD 12 sectional committee.
Fine, thank you so much for those. I'll request Mallika ma'am to please share her screen and start off with her presentation, and then we can have another set of question and answer sessions at the end of her session. Thank you, ma'am. If you can please start.
Very good evening to all of you, and warm greetings from NABL. I thank SIIC IIT Kanpur for inviting NABL for the program. As you are aware that it is very important to establish a connect between the industry and the laboratories. The industry needs to be made aware what all testing facilities are there across the country which are reliable, trustworthy, that means accredited. And the lab also has to be made known what all testing requirements are there from the industry side. So this program is a very good initiative. I commend SIIC for that. And by medium, through this program, I am hopeful that the participants who are listening, they will be encouraged to test their products in NABL accredited laboratories. And whenever they want the awareness about any such program of NABL or the availability of laboratories, they can approach NABL and we can do programs to sensitize further, because this is a new and developing area in the country. So we support the program and we are very much welcome the initiative of SIIC IIT Kanpur in organizing this program. So I'll straight away go to the presentation now. I'll share my screen. Just how to minimize? Okay.
Ma'am, if you can click on the icon there. Yes. Now it's full.
Is my screen visible?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I'll tell a brief about the organization. NABL is compliant to the requirements of ISO IC 17011, which is the international standard for the accreditation bodies, to accredit conformity assessment bodies. Conformity assessment bodies in the purview of NABL are testing laboratories, calibration laboratories, medical laboratories, proficiency testing providers, and reference material producers. And these are the standards in accordance with which we grant the accreditation to these laboratories. So in today's webinar, our interest is basically in the testing and calibration laboratories for medical equipment and devices. So first, let me tell you briefly about the benefits of NABL accredited laboratories, getting your product tested in them and obtaining NABL accreditation for your organization. So first is reliable test results, increased customer confidence because the laboratory has been assessed for its competence and given accreditation, international recognition or equivalence because NABL is the signatory to Asia Pacific Accreditation Cooperation and International Laboratory Accreditation Cooperation, MRAs. By virtue of this, the test report which is issued by NABL accredited laboratory is accepted in member countries who are signatory to this MRA. So for export, when the product is accompanied by test report issued by NABL accredited laboratory, then it removes the technical barriers to trade. So this is helpful in export also by way of, you can say, tested once and accepted everywhere. Then acceptance by regulators, the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, then government e-marketplace, where you want to put up your product as a seller, then EIC, then other regulators like FSSCI, EPIDA, BAR, AERB, they all have accepted the test reports from NABL accredited laboratories, and they are going ahead with their implementing the regulations based on the test report issued by NABL accredited laboratories. Then there is saving of time and money also, because once it is tested, then it can be exported, the product can be exported, or it can be used for the regulators like BEE also. It is not in context with this particular webinar, but I'm giving examples. So there is acceptance among the regulators, government departments, once the test result has been, test report has been issued by NABL accredited laboratory. Now the disciplines in which we grant accreditation, biological, chemical, electrical, electronics, mechanical, non-destructive testing. In all these areas, we have the either medical electrical equipment or the medical device. Then there are other areas like diagnostic radiological QA agency, photometry, forensic, fluid flow, radiological, software and IT systems. These are the other disciplines where we grant accreditation. Related to medical equipment, the diagnostic radiology, photometry for the surgical luminaires, and radiological. This is relevant to the medical equipment. The disciplines in calibration are electrotechnical, fluid flow, mechanical, optical, radiological, thermal, and we have a dedicated discipline for calibration of medical equipment like BP apparatus, patient monitor, nebulizer, defibrillator, ECG, and various other electrical equipment. The accreditation is granted for a period of 2 years, and in the period of 2 years, we conduct annual surveillance before the end of 12th month, and laboratory applies for renewal before the expiry, and we continue the accreditation based on a new assessment which is conducted. Now coming to the medical devices or equipment, these are few equipment which we have given accreditation. Laboratories have approached us for accreditation of these products: ventilators, defibrillator, ECG monitors, radiant warmers. Then medical accessories and surgical products like gloves, catheters, blood administering set, drainage set, cannula, sutures, blood bags, then PPE, mask, medical coveralls, and radiological equipment. These are a few. I'll go to our website and show you the list of the entire products. Then these are certain tests which we do on the medical equipment. and devices, the performance test on equipment like ventilators, then oximeters, then safety testing on the patient monitors. Then for medical devices, the laboratories are accredited for sterility test, toxicity, irritation, and various other tests. For calibration of medical equipment, these are few which I have listed down, like radiological equipment, discharge equipment and devices like oxygen concentration machines, patient condition monitoring equipment, ventilators, defibrillator, suction pump, oximeter, BP apparatus, nebulizer, blood gas analyzer. These are the equipment which laboratories have come forward that they can offer the calibration services to the medical device manufacturers. So any medical device manufacturer can approach accredited laboratory. I'll show you in a few minutes how to search for laboratory, and they can get all these products and much more calibrated from the calibration laboratories which are accredited by NABL. These are few parameters like flow rate, tidal volume, oxygen percentage. All these are the performance parameters we have listed out. Then output power, respiratory rate, expiratory volume. These are the calibration parameters which can be calibrated in accredited laboratories. Now I will show you how we can search for NABL accredited laboratories under these headings. So let me go to the website. This is the NABL website. In this, under the news and announcement section, this is the news and announcement section of the NABL website. In this, we have given a direct list which is updated periodically, that means every week, for which all laboratories are accredited for testing and calibration of medical equipment and devices. This we started because of the huge demand during the pandemic. Otherwise, there is a generalized search option, which I will be showing after this. So if I click on this link, list of testing, labs for testing of ventilator, pulse oximeter, oxygen concentrators. So a list will open, and in this, the product is listed and the laboratory address, contact details are listed. So from this list, you can get a ready reckoner which all laboratories are accredited for this product. Now, if you want to search for these laboratories, how to search it, I will show you a few minutes later. Then second list, which you can see, is for the PPE, list of labs for testing of PPE, coverall, medical protective clothing. So we have given the link, and you can click on the link and get the list. So these are the laboratories. Here we have mentioned the standards also for testing of PPE, coverall, medical protective coating. So this is the entire list. Likewise, you can search for gloves, labs for testing of gloves. So here also we have given the standards and the laboratory details. Then for medical textiles, you can search for labs, search the list of labs. Similarly, for medical devices under ISO 10993. So these are certain products for which the laboratories are accredited. You can see here that we have given the laboratory details here state-wise, and the products are listed in the second column. Test method or test standard is listed in this column, and the test for which the laboratory is accredited for these products. So this list also you can refer. These are certain products and the tests for which the laboratories are accredited. So like that, we have provided the list directly on the website. Similarly, we have given the list for endotoxin test in surgical equipment. So this is the list of laboratories. And likewise, we have given the list for pathogen testing in medical devices. Then calibration of medical devices. This is the list. The product is mentioned here, the ventilator, which all parameters can be calibrated, and this is the laboratory. Likewise, we have given for pulse oximeter also, then discharge equipment, patient monitor, the parameters which the laboratory is capable of calibrating, infusion pump, syringe pump, defibrillator, suction pump, aspirator, BP apparatus. So like this, you can refer to the list. ECG machines, nebulizer, these also can be calibrated, radiant warmer, autoclave, Boyle's apparatus, blood gas analyzer, semi-auto analyzer, hematology analyzer, OT table. In these various parameters which are required to be calibrated, they are mentioned in this list. We have also given one list for thermographs, calibration for testing of thermographs. So these are the labs which are available for testing of medical devices and equipment in the NABL website. Now coming back to the presentation. So these lists I have shown you in the website. Now further to this, we can search for laboratories either by name. If you know a particular laboratory and you want to check the accredited scope, whether it has a particular product in its accredited scope, a particular test method, or a parameter, you can search either way. You can search by name, you can search by the laboratory accreditation certificate number, or by the standard, IS standard or IC standard, or any standard for which the laboratory is accredited. You can search by medical device name or by parameter also, and by the general category. I will show you how to do it. In the NABL website homepage, there is a laboratory search option. This is the 5th tab from the left, and you have to click on accredited laboratories. So once you click on accredited laboratories, this menu will open up. You will have to select the country name, India. If you know the certificate number, then you can type it here. And click on the search. So let us take one certificate from the website. No, in the certificate number is not given. Anyway, if you know the certificate number, then you can type it here. If you know the laboratory name, say this name, if you type, if you know the name of the laboratory, it happens to be, say, Swen. So you type it and click on the search, then you will get the record, the contact details of the laboratory, you can click on the hyperlink here for viewing the scope. So another small window will open up. This window will open up. You will have to click on the certificate number. This is the certificate number TC and a 4-digit number which is allotted and unique for each laboratory. This is the accreditation certificate number. So you can see the listing of the groups for which the laboratory is accredited. So this laboratory is accredited for safety testing facility under which the medical electrical equipment are covered. So if we click on the certificate number, then you will get the link to the scope. You can open the certificate by clicking on the certificate here. So you can see this is the certificate which is issued by NABL to this laboratory. The name of the laboratory appears, NABL logo, ILAC MRA mark, and NABL being a constituent board of Quality Council of India, the logo of QCI. Then the standard against which the laboratory is accredited, it appears here, and the address or the facility for which this laboratory is accredited. It is very important to know the laboratory address, because if suppose there is another laboratory by the same name but located in, say, Delhi, that may not be accredited. So you will have to be sure when you are checking the credentials of an accredited laboratory, what facilities it is claiming accreditation for. The test certificate number appears here, the issue date and the validity of the accreditation certificate. So, and it has to be, there has to be the QR code and the signature of the Chief Executive Officer. So this is how the accreditation certificate is issued. So in case any, you receive any copy of accreditation certificate, which is not having address or not, or having a different standard other than this, or say 2005 written here, so you can check for authenticity in the NABL website. Okay.
We'll start the question and answer session at 5:20 if it's okay with you.
Yeah, only a couple of slides left. I'll
Okay, fine. Sure. Thank you.
just close this. Yeah. Now, for searching through the category, like how do we search from the category? You will have to say we are looking for a calibration laboratory. So you select the country India, then select the field calibration, and we have the discipline of medical devices. You can see on the screen, calibration medical devices. So when you click on medical devices and the search button here, you will get the entire list of the laboratories which are accredited for calibration of medical devices. So there are 15 laboratories. So you can export the data to Excel also. The contact details will be exported to Excel, and you can see their scope also. So if suppose we open the scope of the first laboratory, so again, here you will have the CC number. For testing laboratory, you have TC number. For calibration laboratory, you have CC number. So if we click on this CC number, and we want to see the scope of accreditation of this laboratory, so this is how it will look. The name and address of the laboratory will be given, and this is the certificate number. The validity will be given here, and you can see the, this is the measurand or This is the type of instrument which is calibrated. Then this is the measurement procedure or measurement method, calibration method. This is the range of calibration, and this is the calibration and measurement capability. So let me search for medical devices. Yeah, if we see, this is the scope for medical devices for this particular laboratory, radiant warmer. So here the parameter is skin temperature. Calibration method is using incubator analyzer by direct method. This is the range of calibration, and this is the calibration and measurement capability of the laboratory. So like this, you can search for laboratories, and then you can approach the laboratory for calibration of your equipment. So this sample of accreditation certificate I have already shown to you, and one sample of scope also I have already shown to you in the website search. So now one very important thing which you want or you should demand from the testing or calibration laboratory is the NABL symbol on the test report or calibration certificate. This is the NABL logo, or rather this is the NABL logo, and under the NABL logo, if the TC number, 4-digit number uniquely given to that laboratory is mentioned, so that is the proof that the laboratory is accredited by NABL, and the results within that test report are valid and traceable to SI units. And similarly for calibration, for achieving metrological traceability, the calibration laboratory also has to use the NABL symbol with CC number. This is the accreditation certificate number given to the calibration laboratory. So in case you have any doubt or you want to inquire from NABL regarding the authenticity of claim of accreditation by any laboratory, you can write to us at info@nabl.qcin.org, and you can search for the validity of the accreditation certificate in the NABL website also. One very important thing is the QR code and ULR number system on test reports and calibration certificate, which we have told the laboratories to implement. ULR code is a requirement of GEM, the government e-marketplace. For uploading any product, the seller has to upload a test report or calibration certificate from NABL accredited laboratory, which has to bear a unique laboratory report number, ULR number. This is a 18-digit code, which is uniquely given to each test report or calibration certificate generated by that laboratory. So if GEM needs to cross-check from the laboratory, it can do it using the ULR number. Then QR code is also used for authentication. This is not yet mandatory. This is recently started, but then we have requested laboratories that you implement it as early as possible because we are soon going to mandate it. So it is under the transition phase now. So QR code on any test report. If suppose a manufacturer approaches a laboratory directly and laboratory gives the test reports directly to the manufacturer. So in that case, there is no chance of any practice which is not warranted. But if there is some other element involved midway, then there can be a chance of some manipulation. So to obviate that, we are starting the practice of QR code on test reports. So if the test report which you get from the laboratory does not have the NABL symbol or does not have the ULR number or QR code, you have every right to ask the laboratory why it is not so. And whenever you approach a laboratory, get a quote for testing, then insist on the scope of the laboratory, because laboratory is obliged to give you the scope of accreditation, that this is the scope for which it is accredited. Then you can search your product whether it is in the accredited scope or not. The test method against which you want to get tested, that is in the scope or not. So all those things you have the right to ask the laboratory. And If the laboratories are not providing, you can always seek the information from NABL. Either through website you can find out directly. If you're not able to find out, then you can contact us at info email ID. So we will reply within 24 hours. So these are our contact details. Info I have already told, and this is the website. So this is all from my side. Thank you.
So thank you so much, ma'am, for this insightful presentation. And if you would go to the question and answer section, there are some questions which are open and yet to be answered. I think some are being answered. In the meanwhile, some of the questions that we have from the registered participants one is with regards to the role of the NABL labs for compliance in IS 13450 series of standards. If you could let us know about that.
The laboratories will test the product for as per a particular test method for a particular parameter and a particular range of testing. And similarly for calibration, they will have a validated method. So the NABL accredited laboratory can issue a test report for the sample submitted. So if the manufacturer is submitting the sample, then the laboratory will give the test report. So NABL accredited laboratory role is only in the testing of the product, not in the entire certification system. It is in the chain. So testing being a chain, so the laboratory part comes there.
Right. Now, this is one very interesting question, which is not specifically for NABL or BIS, but nevertheless, if two standards are opposite to each other and product test falls in their range of scope, then how to finalize the standard? This is an interesting question which has come. Anyone can answer actually.
It depends upon the customer requirement. Who is the customer of that manufacturer? What is his requirement? Against what requirement the customer wants the manufacturer to test that product? So he will have to choose from that.
And ma'am, one question we frequently get asked from innovators is, what is the overall time duration for certificate grant starting from the prototype ready stage? How much time can it typically take? I mean, of course, everything depends on the grade of the device and other things. But if everything falls in place, best case, worst case scenarios, what's the range like?
That is for the testing laboratory. Like if the test duration is say 10 days, all the tests are to be conducted. If say test duration in 10 days, then you can add 3-4 days additional for the laboratory. Maybe there would be waiting time also, and report preparation, authorization of results. It depends upon the set of tests, the duration of those tests, plus certain period which every laboratory will take.
That is only for testing. When you are asking the certificate, what kind of certificate is meant by this person who is asking this question? I mean, certificate is a very general term. Are you looking for product certification? Are you looking for a test report? It will depend. So what kind of certificate is he looking for?
Right. And I'll just go to the open questions now, which are just left in the interest of time. One question has come from Mr. Satyendra. He asks, when is BIS planning to change over from IS 7620 to IS/IEC 601 standard for the same product?
I presume that this question is with respect to X-ray equipment, and it is under active consideration. As of now, date is any particular date is not finalized, but the issue is under consideration, and whenever whatever the impeding issues due to which it is being older standard is being referred, whenever they are addressed, we will be switching on to the new standard.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, do AAA alkaline batteries require mandatory BIS registration prior to import if coming from inside the box with a medical device like pulse oximeter? Please ignore if the query is irrelevant to the meeting. You can ignore it also. Is this something of importance?
I don't think that AAA batteries are covered under compulsory mandatory certification. If all, so I will have to check on. They can write an email and we will respond whether it is covered under it. But as far as I know, I don't think it requires BIS certification for import as of now.
Okay. Dr. Pavan Mehrotra asks, for a class A low risk wearable prosthetic, is standards are to be created, what is the tentative timeline, minimum to maximum?
Sir, timelines, maximum timeline is 24 months. We try to, but we try to uh, prepare a standard before that. But it depends on number of factors as to available of any draft, because sometimes when we receive proposal, we don't receive any technical information with proposal. That delays development of standard. If everything is enclosed, if all important data is enclosed, then standard can be developed within few months also, up to maximum of 1 year.
Okay. Anup Chandra asks, NABL gives scope of testing equipment / product as a management system. They do not work efficiently for adoption of latest testing standard, nor they inform lab issue of the new standard. This is an issue that he's raised. Ma'am, if you could.
Yes, I would like to answer this.
Yes.
The accreditation of NABL is granted for the competence of the laboratory for carrying out or performing the test or calibration as per the test method or calibration procedure. So it is the entire system of the laboratory, including the management system, the personnel, the equipment, their capability, the traceability, reference standards, calibration, their proficiency, their PT participation in proficiency testing or inter-laboratory comparison. Their entire capability is checked, and after that, the accreditation is granted. And regarding the second point, that the adoption of latest testing standard, they do not inform the lab. It is on the contrary, sir. The laboratory applies for a test method, say, which has been published in 2018, and laboratory has obtained accreditation in 2019 to 2021. That is the accreditation cycle of 2 years. So in meanwhile, if any amendment is issued in that particular test method, then laboratory proactively writes to, we have a provision in our portal. We have an online portal for processing the application. So laboratory gives a request that so-and-so test method has changed. This is the comparison. So we decide whether an assessment is to be conducted, or we can give the new test method based on the document review. So this is how we cater to changes in test method based on the requirement or request of the laboratory. Now you will agree that whenever any standard has amendment, then NABL should inform the laboratory, because there are 7,000 laboratories and accredited for say more than 5,000 products. So it is the other way around, that the laboratory informs and we do the change in the test method as soon as possible. So this is about this point, sir.
Thank you so much,
working efficiently or inefficiently, it is relative, because
yes.
yeah. So about that, I would not like to comment.
Right. No, absolutely. I'll just have one last question. And this is again a pain point which Mamta Mishra asked. Sometimes the NABL lab may not have accreditation for the scope they handle, but they do not disclose. The customer may not always go online to verify the same. This comes up only when customer is audited. How should such issues be handled?
So in that case, just when I told in the presentation in few slides that how can you, like you can insist that the laboratory gives the accredited scope, that is one thing. If they don't give, then you can write to our email ID at info@nabl.qcin.org, or you can search in our website. So these are the three options. So you will have to be sure beforehand, vigilant beforehand, that the laboratory is accredited for that particular product, because your entire thing depends on that. You cannot lose time. Once you get a report, some time and some resources are lost. So better do that check beforehand through writing to us or from our website.
Fine. So thank you so much, ma'am, and thank you so much, Mr. Sumit, sir, and above all, Mr. Anil Johri, sir. I mean, it is such an honor to have somebody of your eminence to give so much time to our innovator ecosystem and answering all their queries. We're very deeply touched. By your involvement with all our young innovators and mature ones as well. So thank you again. Uh, and we look forward to having the next session um, in the coming week on another range of topics around medical device regulations and other aspects of medical device development. Thank you so much for all of you for your time. Thank you for the participants for asking such wonderful questions. We will, the questions we've not been able to answer, we will try to get back to you directly, and we will certainly make sure that you get your queries resolved. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.